Hello, everyone. You're welcome to our Ignite Talk with Professor Gloria Agyemang. Our Ignite Talks are, free professional development sessions targeted towards the development of our volunteers, staff members, as well as people associated with the network. So as all human interactions demand, we must state some ground rules or ways of working. And the first one would be to take note of key submissions, as this is a valuable learning process. Ask questions, always ask questions, very, very important. And most importantly, please ensure your microphones are muted unless given the platform to speak. Right, so at this point, I wouldn't want to waste much time. We'll move on to introducing our wonderful guests for this session. And I'm happy to call on Farida, our very own Farida, to do this introduction for us. Farida, over to you.
Welcome, everybody. So I'm just going to be introducing our guest and our host. So our guest is Professor Gloria Agyemang. I hope I pronounced it well.
Perfect.
She's EduSpots incoming Chair of Trustees. She's a professor of accounting and current head of the business School of Business and Management at Royal Holloway, University of London. And she holds a PhD in management from the University of London. And our, should I call him our host? Host is Fad Abdurrahman. Fad Abdurrahman is a very energetic programs manager, a very highly motivated and resilient individual. Fad has come through EduSpots, starting from being a volunteer up until this point where he is a programs manager. So welcome everybody, and I hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Farida, for such, wonderful introductions of myself and then Professor Gloria Agyemang. So before delving into the session, there's a profound quote by John F. Kennedy that goes that leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. I love this quote very well. And this reaffirms the importance of learning as leaders. And that's widely known. Teamwork makes the dream work. Fortunately or thankfully, we have Professor Gloria Agyemang with us over here, who's going to talk about teamwork, how to build strong teams in our own spaces. Prof, so delving into this session, my first question would be, how do we get to know our team members?
Okay. Before I answer, a slight correction, Farida. I've stepped down from being the dean. I used to be the dean of the business school, but I've stepped down after 6 years. Enough was enough. So I stepped down. From that role. So now my role is as a professor of accounting. That's why I was complaining about markings, because I'm going right back into the classroom with marking and teaching and all that. And I've left the management for a while. How do you create teams? How do you create teams? I think it's interesting that the last time I talked about teams and leadership, I started by saying it's so important to get to know people. I think it's as a leader, you need to know the people you're working with, so that the people also have a sense of who you are. Okay, if they don't have a sense of who you are, and that you know them personally in some way, often you won't be able to get the best out of them. For example, when I started, I said I was dean for 7 years. For the first year, I mean, the school was 150 academics. So for the first year, I met the school in teams. So I met all the accounting people together. I met all the marketing people together. I met all the accounting people. There was no problem because I was already part of the accounting team. But the other people in the department did not know me. They just knew me as a face, So I made sure I met the marketing people, the economics people, the operations management people. I started by getting to them to know my background, my experience, the things that interest me. my goals in the role, and my expectations. And I think as a leader, anytime you have a team, you should take the time to share yourself with them and to get them to tell you something interesting about themselves, so that you're all on the same page. It's important to share expectations about behavior, but also expectations in terms of the goals of what you're trying to achieve. You know, because so long as we all know what our goal is or our ambition is, that's the first step of getting us to work closely, um, closely together. So I think the first thing is building a team. Know your team members. Get your team members to know you. Share some valuable ideas about that you have, your vision, and see where they are coming from. Their vision. What do they want from EduSpots? Why are they working with EduSpots at the moment? What are their career plans? Do you plan to stay in EduSpots for the next 20 years, or do you plan to stay in EduSpots for the next 3 years? What sort of things are you expecting to get from being in the team? So try to get to know each other first of all.
Amazing.
I think that's extremely important. Otherwise, you get into a situation where you have a master and servant situation, and the team is not a master and servant. People working together to achieve something.
Great. This is so amazing. And then I love the part where you said you share yourself with team members. And I'm wondering, Prof, to what extent should we, share ourselves with team members?
Okay.
Limited to only a professional setting.
Yeah, share yourself with team members. I mean, what things excite you? We're talking about the professional world, okay? Talking about the professional world, working together as professionals. What sort of things do you aspire to?
Fantastic.
For example, one of the things I told my team was, I stand for excellence. I stand for excellence, and so I expect them also to aspire for excellence. No, excellence does not mean you don't make mistakes. You do make mistakes, but you should learn from your mistakes. And once you learn from your mistakes, then you can only improve. I stand for open communication. Okay, in a meeting, I expect everybody to be able to chip in. Some people have teams, but in the meeting, what they do is they stand and they talk like the pastor in the church, and everybody is supposed to listen. Okay, that's not something that I find helpful. Okay, so one of the things I would tell my team members is, look, we are a team, we're working together, ask questions, contribute answers, contribute ideas. Okay, so that gives them a sense of the type of leader you're going to be, so that they feel confident, if not talking in the meeting, after the meeting, dropping you an email. Gloria, I thought about this idea, but during the meeting, I couldn't say it. You know, so share of yourself, share your values, share your goals, what you want them to be able to do. Okay, I think communication and making the point about open communication is important. A lot of people say this open communication, but then by their actions they don't allow the open communications. I mean, if you have a meeting and you are the one talking all the time, and you don't see that nobody else is talking, and yet you have said open communication, then you're kidding yourself. Okay, you're kidding yourself. So you have to say what you want to happen and demonstrate and allow it to happen.
Great. I was happy when you mentioned goal sharing. And we all understand when team building, I believe the first thing to notice the skill sets of people or the skills people bring on board the team. And I'm wondering, Prof, how do we find out people's skill sets and how they can contribute to the team?
Oh, yes, there's a variety of ways. There's a formal way, okay, and then there's the informal way. I mean, the formal way is if you're um, a new or a new team, or you're a new leader. So you new leader, you're coming into the space where there's already a group of people working together. You want to find out about them. Of course, you can do the boring work of going through HR, human resources, paperwork. But one way that I found useful is creating a spreadsheet and I helping people to identify. You can put on top the skills you're looking for, and you can ask them, put their names at the side, and get them to tick off. That is a formal way. That's a formal way. Apart from the HR documents, there's also this initial survey, if you like. But then over time, there's also informal ways. When you have the one-on-one chats with people, you have your performance review or performance management meetings, or in a situation like the conference, like the conference you had a few weeks ago, and you watch how people interact and you watch what people do. You get a sense of what their skills are. So it's a variety of formal and informal ways, and you will select one according to the situation that you're in. I mean, the informal, like watching Fad interview me. I know he is a good communicator. I know he prepares before he conducts an interview, and I can tell that because you quoted J.F. Kennedy. Now, J.F. Kennedy is not living in your head just like that. You've actually thought about it and prepared. So that's a skill I know you have. That's a skill I know that, well, if there's a task to be done and I ask Fad to do it, Fad will not just jump into it. He will pause, reflect, do some background checks and everything, try to get clarification before he delves in. That sort of identifying of skill sets you pick up from the interactions you have with people, the informal interactions. The more formal ones, I have my degree in sociology, so I know you know something about societal analysis. I have a degree in this, so I know you know something. Those formal ones you can get it by getting people to fill a form, or of course you have CVs and you have the HR department as well. So it's a balance of the two. I think one thing about leadership is for us to be aware of is that it's something that's ongoing and it's something that is not finite. There isn't a fixed way of being a leader or a leader knowing the team. It's a collection of different things that you're using all the time to motivate people, to find information about people, and that's what leadership is. So in trying to build your team, we're looking at both formal and informal ways.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Prof, for touching on this. And I think it leads me to my next question. You stated that after getting a sense of what the skills of people are, now it boils down to, or it comes to you assigning roles to team members. My question then is, what kind of things can we do to distribute tasks effectively as a team? So as we are playing in a team, how can we distribute tasks very, very effectively?
Okay, again, background. You have already gained the formal information. of the individual's backgrounds, qualifications, etc. And now you've been working with the individual for, let's say, 3 months, and you've seen also through the informal means what this individual can do. Sometimes the task relates to the job description, the job that you have been recruited to do. Okay, the work you have been recruited to do, the task should be related to that, so that if somebody has been recruited as a finance person, we shouldn't therefore expect the person to be all right with education leadership. Okay, sometimes the background takes that, sometimes the job description takes that, but there are those other things that maybe they're not on the job description, but important, are important to enable the organization, to enable the EduSpots or whatever the organization is to thrive. And that a lot of it is your uh, informal senses of what you have identified as this person's capability. Sometimes you give people tasks to do, not because you know that they can do them, but to stretch them so that they themselves can see that they can do it. Because a lot of times individuals, team members, they have skills that they're not even aware of. So you, as a manager, as a leader, having studied that person, knows that this person can do, but you need to have that person be able to see that they can do. So you give them a task. You just don't throw them into the deep. Of course, you need to have the mentoring and the coaching and the things to support the individual, to help the individual to grow. Apart from that, also, I mean, you have situations where, let's call them the stars, the stars who they can do almost everything. These are the people who can do almost, if you throw this job at that person, he'll do it. If you do it through another one, the person will do it. They are the stars. But you don't want the stars to suffocate the team. You don't want the stars to suffocate the team. So you need to be able to share out the task in a way that doesn't allow people to feel that I'm being overused or I'm being underused. A football example: Manchester United re-recruited Cristiano Ronaldo. When he was on his way down, they brought him in. It was like he became the golden boy who was going to score all the goals. And everything, all the forward, the movements, the striking was dumped on him. Okay, he didn't perform well in that role. He had all sorts of issues. So then he left. So he went away for a couple of weeks or something, and the team had to find somebody else to do that leadership, do that forward, that striking role, and they rose to the occasion to such an extent that they did not miss him whilst he was away. Now that showed the manager that actually we shouldn't have put the burden of scoring all on this guy just because we know he's a star. Just because we know he's a star. So you might know that Fad is very good at presentation. Fad is very good at encouraging and motivating people. But as the leader, you want to share. You don't want to overburden Fad. And you might also have we must also be looking at how we're going to get Fad to develop, or how are you going to get Fad to share some of his talents and skills with other people in the team, so that they have the opportunity to grow. What it's often not very useful. It can be quite detrimental to put all your eggs in one basket, to have one person who's a show boy or the show girl in the team, because that makes you too dependent on that person. That stops that person from stretching. Okay. And what about the other team members? The other team members will become too dependent on that person. Some people may become resentful of that person. Okay, so it's not healthy. It's healthy to rather find a balance of how you're going to use your stars and how you're going to use the people and how you're going to support the people who are not stars but who have abilities that are hidden. There are always people in a team with hidden talent.
Amazing.
There are always
Amazing.
people in a team with hidden talent.
Great. And I think with what you've submitted, it is important that everybody within the team's potential is unaided, so that we don't focus on a single person, or because, okay, that person is the star of the show. And those that just joined, we are interviewing Professor Gloria Agyemang on strategies for team leadership and management. And Prof, after you've been able to, identify team potentials, I'm wondering, there are some people who are self-motivated and, some also depend on external motivation. How do you think we can motivate someone from within the team who seems to be less engaged? Because there are instances where some people be like, oh, for me, I'm unable to play very well when I'm in this kind of setting. How then do we motivate someone who seems to be very less engaging?
Okay, so somebody I mean, of course, you always have to have a chat to find out where is this person coming from? Is he or she less engaged because she is bored? Okay, she's bored. The work considers the work beneath their capabilities. Are they less engaged because they're scared and they are fraud? They really don't know how to do it, but they like to pretend that they know how to do it by not doing it. You have all sorts of people around. I think I come back to that point. What's motivating that individual, and where's the individual's hidden talent, and where's the individual's interest, and where's the individual's commitment? The commitment might not be there because the individual is thinking about, I'm only doing 12 hours a week. I'm only doing 12 hours. To do this job, I need 16 hours. But those extra 4 hours I'm not being paid for. So I will do minimum. Yeah. So it's a multitude. There are many factors that explain people's disengagement. And as the leader, I always come back to, you have to know your people. You have to talk to your people. You have to find out. You find out formally. You find out informally.
Amazing. And Prof, I'm wondering, there are some instances where burnout sets in. So at a point where you're trying to find their skill sets, some people are able to put up that angelic, faith. So you're unable to know some of their, let me just say, weaknesses in quote. Now, it gets to a point we start working together, burnout sets in. How then do I motivate this person who is, in quotes, downtrodden as a result of burnout?
Okay, so the individual, if I hear you correctly, the individual has not necessarily been honest about her capabilities. Okay,
Exactly.
so then things that should take, because they've given the impression that I can do it, and things that should take 3 hours may end up taking 6 hours because of the false impression this person has given. Then burnout sets in because you can't constantly be deceiving yourself and deceiving the team that you are capable. Okay, now a good leader, this should not come as a surprise to a good leader. if the leader is watching, and talking to the individual, if the leader has an open communication style, again, it's sometimes being a leader is also being a detective. Being a detective, having your emotional intelligence and your sensory intelligence, look at what people are doing to gauge. I mean, if there's burnout, there'll be other evidence. For example, coming to work late, taking days off, falling sick, all that is evidence that requires the leader to probe, to ask, to speak to the individual, and encourage the individual to come up. I mean, some managers set traps. I don't think that's a useful way. You give the person a huge burden that the person is going to fail. And once that person fails, then you see, wow, there you are. You see, you told me you could do this, but you can't. Some people do that. I don't think that's authentic leadership. I don't think that's leadership that's driven by caring for the individual and caring for the organization. Leadership is very lonely, and it's hard. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. It seems to be ongoing, and it can be you become tired without actually knowing why you're tired. Because if you're looking after your team members all the time, that in itself is tiring. Now, so the only way I think to succeed as a leader, so that the leader, does not burn out, is authenticity. Be true to yourself and be true to the individual. I think to be authentic is absolutely crucial. In the long run, that's what's going to help you, the leader, to survive. Because if you have a team, and a team could be 3 people, okay, a team could be 3 people, but it's just as difficult to manage a team of 3 as it is to manage a team of 8, because you're constantly looking, you're talking, you're directing, you're motivating all the time, and the only tool that you have is yourself. I went to a leadership training course some time back, and the facilitator had a model, and the model was the leader was in the middle with a set of balls, and the leader was juggling these balls all the time. Balls about the targets of the goals of the organization, the finance of the organization, the people of the organization, the different types of people of the organization, the need. So the leader is there and it's juggling all these things all the time. Now, if you're juggling 2 balls, it's easy. Back, forth, back, forth. But if you've got 8 balls in the air, you can imagine how much that takes out of you. And the trainer, the facilitator said, what you need to remember as leaders is that you are the center. So unless you are true to yourself, unless you're authentic, you're not going to be able to do this juggling. You will drop something. If you say you're a person who's a good communicator and you're not, and yet you have to communicate because of all this, the question of time before 1 or 2 of the balls fall. So as a leader, I think it's important for you as the leader to recognize that you are juggling all the time, but it is you who is juggling. It is you who must make sure that you don't get the burnout. You get burnout just like any other team member when you don't create boundaries, You don't tell your team members that, look, I don't answer emails after 5 p.m. You don't tell your team members that I expect you to have a weekend. Don't work at the weekend. You know, because the weekend is there to encourage the people to recuperate, to recover, for them and for you. You know, so if you don't set boundaries for them, if you don't help them to set boundaries themselves, we're all going to be sitting in a bus that's going to crash.
Amazing, amazing. Prof, I'm very happy you mentioned boundaries, which we'll be talking about in a bit. But there are some teams with team players, being negligent of tasks. I know inevitably there are some situations that would crop up to make people negligent of their task. And I'm wondering, if people are being very, very negligent, you task them, they fail to do, or they neglect the task, what should we do to solve this problem? I see it to be a problem if people are just neglecting tasks.
Yeah, I mean, as always, the beginning point is find out why this is happening. Does the person not understand the task? Does the person not have the skills to and take the task? If the person is just negligent because lazy or can't be bothered, then you start going down the performance management route. Because people don't do because people don't achieve because they don't want to do or they can't do. Okay, so if they don't want to do, again, you find out why. You provide the support. You set targets. You go through the formal process. If they can't do, again, find out why. Provide the support. Set targets, and then follow up. But it gets to a point. It will always get to that point when you need to bite the bullet and say, look, you can't do it. Leave it. You can't do it. Think I'm going to change you from the role you're in and get you to do another role. And get you to do another role instead. It comes to that. It comes to that point. And you want to be able to put in support and steps to help this individual through this process they're going to. I mean, what you must not do is when you see somebody being negligent, just ignoring it. If you ignore it, it doesn't go. It just gets worse. So you find out what's happening. Why can't you do it? Why aren't you doing it?
Interesting. Interesting. And Prof, there at some point, or when you start building a team with a specific team culture, and at some point in time, this culture changes. How does that affect the team's dynamics? I'm wondering. You start, creating firm boundaries, although that wasn't something you started with. How do you think it affects the output of the wider team?
Okay, you see, organizations are constantly changing. They change because of tasks. They change because people change. They change because people have, even though the people don't change, what's happening in people's lives change and impact upon what they're doing. So the leader's response, again, finding out what's happening. Some people enjoy freedom and independence, and they thrive in that. Some people want direction and order and command, and they thrive in that. As with most things, it's a balance. As with most things, there should be some sort of balance. If the whole team as a whole is not meeting targets, not achieving the goals, then that requires a strong discussion, a strong discussion, finding out why and everything. And then sometimes it's being prescriptive. You prescribe, you must do this, you must do that, the whole team, for the whole team. Or if it's an individual who's pulling the team down, you take that individual in hand and be prescribed. You did this, you did. You will always have to diagnose the problem. You always have to diagnose the problem. If you go to see a doctor, you tell him your story. He'll tell you what he thinks it is. Then he'll give you the medicine. It's exactly the same sort of thing. There's a problem. Let's have a discussion. Let's diagnose the problem. Then what should be the solution? Now, the solution need not just come from you. The solution should be something that the team recognizes and the team suggests that we should be able to do this. I think we should do this. I think it would be much more effective if you give us A, B, and C so that we know step by step what we must do. And then after a period of time, you find that they get used to step by step, and then automatically they start taking off and being independent. So it's a case always of diagnosis before that's the talking, the finding out what is wrong, being the detective, before the medicine given. And the medicine is something that sometimes, being the expert, you will know what that medicine should be. Sometimes that medicine is something that you're going to create amongst yourselves. And we know that if we have this, it would help.
Amazing. And Prof, just as you're talking about diagnosis, I think it leads me to my next question. And as they say, a proper diagnosis is half the problem solved. In teams, definitely there are situations where we would have difficult moments. And I would want to know, how do we, or what are some of the strategies to put in place to manage conflict or difficult conversations?
Again, if you're talking about an individual or you're talking about a team. Okay.
So
let's assume you're talking about an individual, because what we learn from the individual we can take on to the team. It's something called having difficult conversations. Having difficult conversations, and there's a series of steps. 7 things or so. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But there's a series of steps that you go through. Diagnosis is one. And part of the diagnosis is listening to the person and assessing whether you yourself have heard what the person is saying. Because sometimes people are saying things in ways that you don't hear. And if you don't hear it, you're not going to be able to establish a positive way forward, a good way forward. So diagnosis is always the case, but part of the diagnosis is assessing whether you have heard what the person's problem is. Sometimes the problem is not organization. The problem is outside the organization, and yet the person brings it into the organization. So similarly, with a team, difficult conversations, we're going to go through these 7 steps, trying to find out why, trying to assess whether it's us, management, leadership, or whether it's the team, or is it a person within the team that's having an issue that's affecting everybody else. Within the team, there are leaders. Okay, the leader of the team need not be the known leader. Sometimes you have a rogue leader in there who is driving the others to behave in a certain way. Okay, you have to identify that. I mean, I had a situation. There was a problem with the marketing department, and the leader was not accepted as the main leader. There was a rogue leader who was taken as the leader, and he was directing the people in a different direction from what the main leader was trying to do. So, of course, we had to have a big meeting. There was a big meeting that we had together, and I said, "We're going to trash this thing out. You're going to have to explain. Let's find out what's going on here." Because as a leader, you see things that they don't see. You hear things that they don't hear, even though they're speaking those words themselves. Emotional intelligence, deep listening. You know, once you've identified it through these conversations that I realized that there was a rogue leader taking them down the wrong path, and that the main leader was so overcome by this rogue leader that uh, he was not coping. So I had the conversations with the main leader, and I had the conversations with the rogue leader, reminding him that he's a team member, reminding him that, look, you have a responsibility. Rather than standing in the background and destroying everything, why don't you talk to this guy? Or if you find that difficult to talk to this guy, why don't you talk to your next level up? It's always about diagnosis.
Yes, and
At the
of the
individual level.
yes, the initiative you took by, seeing this rogue leader and then giving him or equipping him in place. This is something most of us find difficult doing, because we think then if we are going to equip other team members in place, it's like we are stepping in their shoes or we are taking their role from them. Right. I'm happy you mentioned this. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you are learning as much as I'm doing right now. If you are just joining us, we are here with Professor Gloria Agyemang, as we're talking about strategies for team leadership and management. Prof, we've been talking about leadership for quite some time. And then when we say leadership, what are the key things that enable people to be drivers of wider teams of change?
I've mentioned already the authentic leader. So you as the leader need to have a clear vision of what you're trying to do. Okay, an exercise that is useful to do one of these days is to think about why should anybody follow what I say? So that you assess yourself as a leader. Am I clear? Am I this? Do I have a vision? Because leadership and management is different. Okay, management is you have rules and regulations and people are following. Leadership is trying to get the individuals and the team to follow your vision and to acquire your vision. So part of it is a clear vision. Part of it is communication. Part of it is the communication. Part of it is being able to diagnose the problems, being able to use your talents in the right places. If this person is I don't know, my football knowledge is limited, but if this person is a left back player, why should you put him on the right hand side when he performs better from the left? Know your talents that you have and use the talents appropriately. And the only way you can do that, of course, is asking and watching and doing the diagnosis of being able to make sense of what's happening. Okay. I think being clear, being firm. Part of leadership is also being able to tell people, no, you are wrong. No, you are wrong. Sometimes I have used in situations the order, the command when you have somebody who's extremely difficult, and I've said you will do so because Gloria tells you so, and then Gloria is not, that's not your style. I say, yeah, but this time it's my style, because you're not hearing, so you will do so because your boss tells you to do so. Sometimes you have to do that. And invariably, what happens after that is they come back to you and say, actually you were right. And I said, well, I was right because I could see you could not see what was needed to be done. You know, sometimes you do have to pull rank. Sometimes you do have to be able to make your team members follow instructions. But that's when you've gone through all the diagnosis, all the talking, all the explanations and everything, and this person is not moving. That's when you should be able to do that. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because even though we're team members and we're leaders, we still think of ourselves as colleagues. You know, we're all on the same side. Nobody wants to pull rank. But there is rank, there is hierarchy, you know, and you have oftentimes the leader has more knowledge than the individual, more knowledge of the task on the reason why the task is being carried out than others. Okay, so I mean, in the case of a charity like EduSpots, we're driven by the outcomes demanded by the funders. We're driven by reporting schedules which must meet international standards. And if we don't meet those, we put the organization at risk. But as a person, as a member of the team, some team members will not know why are we pushing them so hard on this thing? Why are we pushing hard on it? Of course, you have to explain, raise the awareness, etc. And still there's not that understanding. Then you have to say, well, trust me, you need to do this. And I'm ordering you to do it. I'm doing it as your line manager. I'm suggesting that you do this. And at that point, that person has to fall in line.
Interesting. Interesting. And
have you ever told somebody you must do it?
That is no,
not
really.
Yet. But
not
to,
yet.
To be a leader, you must tell them sometimes. But you don't do it flippantly. Do it when you know and you're right. Yeah.
Wow.
And you can see that that person doesn't know, doesn't understand.
Sure. Fantastic. So it's not always that we should, be very easygoing with team members, but then
definitely not. Definitely not. You can be easygoing with team members, but don't let the boundary be crossed to such an extent that the team member thinks I don't have to do what Fad says. You know, because Fad is a nice guy and he talks to them and everything and explains everything. Then some team members he's stopped. I had a boss who told me that, Gloria, you see this sleeve of mine? I have a hook in it. Occasionally, I bring the hook out and let people see that hook, and that soon gets them behaving properly. So occasionally you do have to let them see that actually I'm nice and everything, but this is the issue, and you must do it. But once you've done that, once you've shown up that hook, you know the person leaves feeling bruised, feeling devalued. It's not nice. Let a bit of time pass. Call the person back in and explain what happened and how and why. That helps the person to learn.
Wow. This has been a very valuable learning process for myself and then everybody on this call. I think we're drawing closer to the end of this session, and then I'll move into the chat section. I think we have a few questions over there. Yeah, so we have a question from Mohammed that says, Akolgo like working in a group, but he is not confident enough, and is shy due to how he was brought up. This is actually affecting his level of contribution in the group. How do I help Akolgo to build his confidence and his shyness? So he has given a scenario, yes, of someone who is, not confident as a result of their background. And now, how does this person, how do we help this person to be more,
to bring the person up, bring the person up, and to get the person to become a bit more confident. That's a hard issue, because people are how they've been brought up. People are how they've been brought up. But then there is the professional expectation as well. So as Mohammed or whoever the manager is, talking to the individual, pointing out things to the individual in a meeting, bringing this person out, asking, don't allow the individual to just sit there. Ask the question, well, what do you think? And beforehand, I mean, I've had situations, and it often happens in the classroom. The cleverest boy or girl shouts the answer, and the weaker people who are not confident, they keep quiet. You talk to those people and say, well, clever boys and girls, today you're going to keep quiet. Let's hear from this person. Let's hear from this person. And you tell that person, I'm doing this because I want you to raise your confidence. In the classroom, I always say, no answer is wrong. No answer you give me is ever wrong, especially for a discussion point. No answer is ever wrong. So if you feel your answer is foolish, be sure that somebody else also has a similar idea in their head. So let's bring it and let's share it, and let's gain the benefits of your contribution. So it's exactly the same thing with teamwork. People who are shy, people who feel that they can't speak out. You as the leader must bring that person out using whatever opportunities. Sometimes it's, again, always talking privately to them, what you've noticed, and then sometimes it's encouraging them in a public situation. But don't do it in a way that you bring the person down. If the person is really very, very nervous, you must have those conversations and before you start bringing the person out. It takes time.
Fantastic. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to share your questions in the chat section, and possibly if you can come off mute and ask, that would also be appreciated. The second question reads, assuming working and leading team members who are older than you, irrespective of what you do to try to convince them to be very active and take up tasks, they consider their age and are never ready to take up this task. Also, they have this negative mindset of you, the leader of the team, being honored. Added to the above, they all try any possible means to stop others who would want to join hands and take tasks. In this situation, what do I do more? What do I do more to still get them on board to actively take up tasks and also bring others on board to help build a strong team?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because these are real scenarios. I mean, when I finished university, and I was in an auditing firm, and we would go around to audit different companies. And those days, all the accountants and bookkeepers were much older than me, So when you tell them I want to see this, the way they look at you, like small girl like you, small girl like you, or small boy like you, you can sense it. You can see that they are not responding because they feel that age superiority. Again, it's very difficult. And it's, again, and the other thing I didn't talk about is role playing. As a manager, you role play. I remember, telling one older bookkeeper that, oh, Daddy, it's true. I'm a small girl. I don't really know as much as you. That's why I'm asking you. To tell me how to do this. That's role play. I knew very well what I wanted, but I needed to respect his age and his view of himself. So there are all sorts of ways of communicating to help that. Now, the problem becomes when this older person becomes a rogue leader. You've used your role play. You've talked to him privately. You don't want to belittle him in front of people, etc., etc., etc. You invite him to the office and you show him the hook, because you always have a hook. As the leader, you always have that thing that will put people back in line, and you have to use it sometimes. And while you're using it to the older person, you can say such things like, I respect you and I don't like doing this and everything, but actually the job requires me to do this, and show him the hook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You have to be firm sometimes. You cannot allow someone who has the age, has the experience, but not necessarily the knowledge. Remember, I said that as the leader, you have more knowledge in terms of requirements and the reasons. You don't have to share those reasons with people all the time. Or tell them we're doing this because of that. This has to be done because you don't have to do that all the time. You have to do that strategically. When the rogue leader, is misbehaving, we do not humiliate in public. Public humiliation is the worst thing you can do. Okay, it should be, you should be able to ask them, well, Pat, come to my office afterwards. Pat, let's have a chat afterwards. Or if you know he's going to behave like that in advance, you call him. Pat, we're going to have this meeting. This is what I'm going to do. I want you to support me, and I value your statements and everything. But we need to be on the same side. Let them see that they have something to contribute as well. Okay. The hook is the last point, really. It's really the last, when you've gone through performance management and all sorts of things, that you know that actually I really have to put an end to this.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Professor, for sharing your wealth of wisdom, and knowledge with us. It's been a wonderful 1 hour with you. Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, I also appreciate you all for making time to join this session with us. If there are no other questions, I'm happy to draw the curtains to the end of this session. And as always, Professor Gloria Agyemang is now stepping in as a chair of trustees, which means she's going to spend more time with us volunteers, and then we always love to have her around. Who doesn't love to, have Professor Gloria Agyemang around? It's been an amazing session, and then we are highly grateful for you also having time to share your wealth of knowledge with us all. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful...
Can I say a thing before you close up?
Sure.
I think you should all give yourselves a pat on the back. Okay, you do amazing work. The only reason why I agreed to be chair, because I see the good things that you people are doing, and it's really very, very impressive, giving up your time, volunteering, and I also accepted this role because I said there's a lot of talent in Ghana, and we must bring this talent out. We must help the young people to come up so that they can contribute. They can contribute to bringing Ghana up. Ghana should not be where it is at all. And we can only get better if we all work together. We use our talents to help each other. So I really appreciate this role that this new role that I've got, and I'm looking forward to working with you and coming to see some of you at work in the sports. Kat is not here, but it's also good to remember Kat. Okay, it's also important for us to remember Kat and the dedication and the devotion she puts into it. She is amazing. I accepted the role because Kat is an amazing person. She does a lot of hidden things that really helps EduSpots to thrive. You know, she's working towards the situation where EduSpots will have a life of her own, of its own, and she can sit back and say, I created that thing to work, you know. But she's not going to be able to do anything without you guys. You guys are very important in the process. When you're working, have a long view, a long-term view of, I mean, day-to-day, there are always day-to-day problems. As leaders, volunteers, there's always day-to-day problems. But don't lose that sight. Don't lose that vision. The vision that you want to contribute to your communities so that they grow up, so that the communities come up. I mean, that's why we're all in this. Kat is spending her time because she wants Ghana to thrive. Whereas I'm spending my time because I want to encourage the young people to aim high, to push us up. You are also, as volunteers, working with your communities in order to bring the community up. So we're all in this thing together. We're all in this thing together. We're all working hard. There are rough days, but during the rough days, remember the good times and the reason why you're doing things. Okay, that's all I wanted to say, to encourage you to continue, despite all the trials that you may face. Thank you, Fad, for interviewing me. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk to the volunteers, the network, yourselves. I'll try my best. I'll try my best to support you as much as I can.
This is so heartwarming to hear, Prof. Yes, and then as Prof said, let's all work together to build Mother Ghana with our talents, our knowledge, and then skills. And Prof, as always, we are also ever ready to support you in any capacity that we can. All right, then I think in the absence of any other business, I'm happy to draw the curtains to the end of this session.
Thank you all of you for coming.
And have a wonderful